Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's We Are Salt and Light Hangout. My name is Lexi Bradley with the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities. ACCU is co-sponsoring this webinar with the U.S. Catholic Bishops' Department of Justice, Peace, and Human Development. Our topic today is on how our college and university communities are called to learn about and respond to the Church's social mission. In a 2015 meeting with educators, Pope Francis wrote, "My question to you as educators is this: do you watch over your students, helping them to develop a critical sense, an open mind capable of caring for today's world, a spirit capable of seeking new answers to the varied challenges that society sets before humanity today? Are you able to encourage them not to disregard the world around them, what is happening all over? Can you encourage them to do that? To make that possible, you need to take them outside the university lecture hall. Their minds need to leave the classroom. Their hearts must go out of the classroom." The previous live events in this series have offered concrete examples of how faith communities are being salt and light. Today's panel lifts up inspiring examples from campus communities. First, we'll hear from Dr. Kathleen Smythe, Professor of Sustainability at Xavier University in Ohio, who will describe a creative means of engaging students to assist a local cooperative coffee shop. Next, Tom Southard, Director of the Wolfington Center at Cabrini University in Pennsylvania, who will discuss community-based learning about refugees and climate change. Finally, Father Ratito Jerome, Director of Campus Ministry at Xavier University in New Orleans, Louisiana, will share about his work to engage students around global solidarity. Participants, as you hear what they share, feel free to chat in your questions. We'll have some time to take some questions at the end. And panelists, just a reminder to unmute your mic if you have manually muted it. So Kathleen, let's start with you.
Thank you, Lexi. Good afternoon, everyone. The course that I was involved in worked with an organization called Community Blend, and it was a worker-owned coffee shop that had been established by an organization in Cincinnati called Interfaith Business Builders. And that organization also had Xavier faculty members on its board. So from the very beginning of the organization, it's had a link to Xavier University. And when I got involved, there were a group of sustainability faculty that really wanted to have a class that met off campus and that addressed some critical issues at the intersection of sustainability and social justice, which is also at the heart of our Pope's encyclical Laudato Si, right? That we have to solve both of these problems at once. We can't tackle them one by one. And frequently, I think we tend to relegate environmental concerns to a secondary place, being concerned initially with poverty. And we wanted to see what we could do to think about them both together, but within a very real context. So the course had three components to it that I think are important. One, it was interdisciplinary. And so we talked about race in the nation. We talked about race historically, race in Cincinnati. We talked about the history of cooperative movements generally, but particularly within the African American community. And we also talked about politics and philosophy as they related to communities and political ideas. The second part of the course was that it was project-oriented, so that the students got to work, some of them with Community Blend, some of them with other cooperatives in Cincinnati, and see what their core mission was and to help them with some project. Often it was market-oriented to try and help them sell their message to the appropriate audience. The third element was, and by far the most difficult, was that we wanted to include Community Blend members in the course. And it was challenging for a number of reasons. One, these are people who are working full-time, sometimes multiple jobs, and they weren't going to get academic credit for the course. So we financially compensated them for their time, which I think worked out well. They were with us 7 out of the 15 weeks and shared their stories and used their experiences, both personal and with the cooperative business, to students. The other challenge with it was that the students tended to approach these workers from a charity perspective, I would say. And we had to work with the class a little bit to elevate their thinking and think of these cooperative workers as equals to them. The connection to Catholic social teaching, I think, is clear, but I'll just mention three things very briefly. One, the life and dignity of the human person. We met off campus, and we met in a community that has among our student body a reputation for some violence. And so students were reluctant at first to meet in this church community off campus, but I think they quickly found that there was nothing to worry about, and that it was really heartening and enlivening to meet with this church community. And so the pastor would come in and greet us every week and was kind enough to provide food. And I think it turned out to be a wonderful experience. The other element is, of course, option for the poor and vulnerable. But we kind of turned this one on its head a little bit because we sought to help our own students see that in some ways they were poor in terms of their understanding of the issues that people in the neighboring community faced, and that we are all vulnerable when it comes to climate change and other environmental issues. And then the last one is care of God's creation. And of course, the mission of the course was to help students see that there's a direct connection between social justice work and the care of God's creation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kathleen, for sharing that inspiring example of how the students were able to go out into the community and learn from the people that they encountered there and to learn together. Great. So next we'll go to Tom to share his example.
Thanks, Lexi. I'm really excited to be here today. So Cabrini University's mission is based in social justice. To that end, our core curriculum includes this component that helps students to move from understanding to action to advocacy. We use a model of learn, reflect, plan, act. So over the years, our Catholic Relief Services ambassadors, the CRS ambassadors, I'm sure many of you are familiar with that CRS program, they partner with CRS to educate and to mobilize college campuses, and they found a model at our college that works really well for them. They create simulations to consider social justice issues. By walking participants through an experience where they can feel what it means to be a participant, it encourages them to learn more. After the learning, our simulations include the opportunity for education, reflection, and advocacy. So our preparing program is Refugees Seeking Safety, which is about unaccompanied minors from Central and South America. Participants are assigned the background of a refugee. Some are older, some are younger, some are more affluent, some have fewer resources. And then they go through an enactment of a vignette that's typical of the push factors that will drive unaccompanied minors to flee their homes for safety. The vignette includes potential options that'll face a minor who's detained at the US-Mexico border, including detention conditions, legal hearings, and likely outcomes. They'll reflect on root causes of the migration with explanations of what's being done to address these push factors by agencies like CRS. They get an explanation then through the lens of Catholic social teaching of proposals for what needs to be done to improve the treatment of young people, the legal process that people must undergo to prove their cases as refugees, and options for what might happen to the minors. At the end, they reflect and pray to deepen their commitment to solidarity. They have an opportunity to engage in advocacy, which can include a range of options from social media to petitions to advocacy emails to involving their friends. We've seen great success in educating our students, in engaging them in continuing advocacy, and in making this program a touch point for many students here at Cabrini University, which is appropriate for this one considering Mother Cabrini is the patroness of immigrants. We've also taken this show on the road, offering it at high schools in New York and New Orleans, at World Youth Day celebration in DC, at college campuses across the country. Our goal is now for other groups to take this program and live it out. So we recently received generous support from CRS and the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities through their grants program, which as of today, November 17th, is open for applications, which allowed us to develop the program more, to share it with more people, and now to create a replicable model for anyone to use. You can find out more information by going to refugeesseekingsafety.org. So since then, we've repeated this simulation successfully with climate change. This year, we're taking the model and applying it to understand Syrian refugee issues. Our students have been studying Syria and just this week debuted a program that encourages students to, again, consider how to learn, pray, reflect, and act. So we're really excited to see the impact.
Great, thank you, Tom. I really like how in that example it engages both the students' minds and their hearts and takes them out of the classroom to learn more about the root causes of some of these issues. Next, we're going to have Father Ratito share his example.
Yes, Call to the Xavier's mission is an ideal of building a more just and humane society. And the way we do this at Xavier is to like open the student to learning about global issues and not only learning about them, but taking action in those global issues. And so, for example, here at Xavier, the students are really passionate about, advocacy, advocating for issues. And so they have the CRS ambassadors program in our university has taken on the initiative of advocating and going to congressional visit and doing congressional visit to tackle these global issues. And one of the issues that we have tackled over the years is globally is migration issues, Syrian refugees crisis. And so they had a chance to talk to our congressional representative and about how they should change laws and policies that will allow immigrants to come and seek refuge in our nations. And so they really took this to heart and they walked about, and they also pray. And so they developed, they follow the model of having solidarity visuals in a chapel for migrant workers, and also to talk about and engage students and engage students in all these issues. And it was one of the most attended events on our campus recently. And so our students, not only are they passionate about this, but they're also passionate about local issues. And so one of the local issues that we tackle is homelessness. In New Orleans, as we know, homelessness is a big thing. So our students took on the initiative to organize a Homeless for a Night challenge. And so they had to spend all night, being homeless. And they also do it prayerfully in that they took like narratives of homeless people from Humans of New York, and they magnified and gave humanity to those stories. And they prayed about it, and they prayed, and they spent a night outside, and then also the following day they went and distributed food to the homeless. So our students are not only passionate about global issues, but they're also passionate about local issues because this is close to their heart. And at the same time, they embodied this by doing concrete advocacy. One of the things we advocated for was for smart programs, that the government should not cut funding on smart programs, but rather they should expand these programs, because this program really gets to meet the needs of the people, especially people in our neighborhoods.
Great. Thank you, Father Ratito, for sharing that example of how your students learn together about issues that are affecting our brothers and sisters both in the local community but as well as around the world. So now we're going to move to the question and answer part of our session today. Just a reminder for any participants, if you want to submit questions in the chat, please feel free to do so, and I can give those to the panelists. We'll go ahead and start with a question for Kathleen. Kathleen, in your segment today, you talked a lot about partnering with the community. What advice would you give to a campus wanting to establish a similar kind of partnership in their community, like working with interfaith builders, and what might the good first steps be to start that partnership?
The part that I didn't share with you is we actually started the project with a series of meetings over the summer. There were 4 or 5 faculty, and then we invited members of both the Evanston community, where the coffee shop is located, and the other neighboring community, as well as workers from the coffee shop. And so we sort of had a workshop over the summer where we tested a whole series of ideas that might have been central to the course and honed them based on our conversation, particularly with community members. That's what we were interested in, because there could be such a divide between academia and the community in terms of interests, in terms of understanding, interpretations. And so that would be one of my first recommendations, is you build on the relationships that you have and don't hesitate to create new ones and to spend the time. And we spent hours and hours before there was even anything remotely close to a syllabus created just getting to know each other and exploring the themes together that we thought might be fruitful. And don't be surprised if there are some stumbling blocks. We spent a long time working on the compensation piece and trying to figure out how to really integrate community members into the class in a meaningful way that didn't feel like an add-on.
Great, thank you. Our next question is for Tom. So often our campuses do a really great job of educating students about the issues, but it's hard to translate that into advocacy, into action. Can you share more about the advocacy that you engage students in?
Sure. So as a part of our Just Matters curriculum, which is the name of our core curriculum, there is a focus on advocacy that exists anyway. By the time students get to their third year here at Cabrini, they've taken some course that is involved research or advocacy or education, some way to take a social issue and to start to change it. So what we wanted to do in working into these simulations that we create is have the opportunity for students to actually engage in some type of real advocacy effort. And what that typically involves, what's nice is that our focus working through CRS has been through some international issues, and CRS has amazing resources for doing advocacy for some of these international issues. They have best practices, they have letters, we have form letters, often we'll have computers set up where students can send off a letter to their congressman because we've been able to provide that through CRS. Catholic Charities USA also has a great advocacy program for more of their social issues, and so does the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, especially through wearesaltandlight.org, has some great resources for advocacy. So what we try to do is to find that one thing that will allow our student to feel a connection, and sometimes it's not going to be sending the letter or the social media tweet or handing out literature that they can continue to hand out. So often we'll try to work in a series of those to find where a student can connect. But when we really get a student connected, it becomes exciting. Last year, after running this for probably the fourth time here at Cabrini, we had a group of freshmen going through it, and they ended up putting together a trip to DC so that they could advocate to the Congress on their own about some social justice issues, particularly about international development as supported by CRS, but they saw it as a step they could take. And that's been our whole hope on this. So it's not this is the one thing that works. It's finding the way to connect students to it so that they can take ownership of the issue and really want to make a difference.
Great, thank you, Tom. That's really great to hear. Now we have a question for Father Ratito. How do you help students connect our faith and spiritual practices with action to help our brothers and sisters globally and in the local community?
One of the ways I do it is, I always talk to students and say, we have one women family and we are interdependent, and what affects one person in another country affects us whether we know it or not. And so there's so many ways to do it, and it's how do we get engaged? First, to prayer, and through prayers and these visuals that we do, we are connected somehow, because when we do this visual, we also expose them to the issues of this country. Last year we did a visual on Madagascar when they were having the earthquake and things like that. And on this visual, we talked about the country. There might be a natural disaster in one region of the country, but this natural disaster also affects us. And in New Orleans and in Louisiana, we are familiar with natural disasters. So this is close to us. And so students here at Xavier understand that global issues are also local issues. And so one of the ways is to pray, because prayer, not only prayer is active, but also when you pray, you have to accompany it with action. And so they accompany with action by doing advocacy, also by doing concrete things like getting items to donate to those victims locally and those globally. And so we do one of the global, how we tackle this is through CRS Rice Bowl, in terms of how do we engage global issues as well. We do CRS Rice Bowl on our campus. When we began doing CRS Rice Bowl at Xavier's campus, it wasn't popular, but now it's becoming popular because we not only pray the prayers, we do the prayers and that comes with it during Lent, but at the same time, the collections are done in such a way that they actually is, even if it's small, they are to meet the needs of other people globally. So students here are connected and they're engaged because they feel that we are one human family, and that what happens to us locally and also affects us globally. And at the same time, so that's why we are passionate about doing all these spiritual visuals so as to help us understand that we are interdependent and always connected, even though we are far apart.
Thank you, Father Ratito. Another question for Kathleen. Sometimes it can be challenging for disciplines outside of theology to integrate Catholic social teaching into their classroom. What practical ways did you help the business, the communications, and sustainability faculty and students reflect on Catholic social teaching as they did this work?
I didn't have to work that hard at it, I think in part because there's a filter of and associated with hiring at Xavier, but the topics that the faculty specialize in that I was working with are things like democracy, right? And the philosophies of democracy and what it looks like in different institutions. And so that lent itself beautifully to worker-owned cooperatives and to thinking about Catholic social teaching. Similarly, when discussing the history of African-American co-ops, the spaces in which African Americans have formed co-ops in the past are these interstitial spaces, mostly at the local level. So again, illustrating subsidiarity and really trying to meet basic needs of communities. So the intersections were relatively easy across multiple disciplines, and wasn't very challenging at all.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, panelists, for these inspiring and helpful examples of campus communities learning about and responding to the Church's social mission. Now I would like to turn it over to my colleague, Jill Rao of the U.S. Catholic Bishops Department of Justice, Peace, and Human Development, which is co-hosting this webinar.
Hi, everyone. So in the last few minutes of our time together, I just want to take you through a couple of resources that you might find helpful if you're looking to replicate some of what you've heard about. Hopefully you can all see my screen right now, which I'm sharing, but the first resource that I wanted to point to is this these partnerships that we have been promoting with ACCU and the USCCB, U.S. Bishops Catholic Campaign for Human Development since 2010. And it's really the idea that we can play a role in helping colleges and universities to connect with organizations in the community that can really be a mutually beneficial relationship. So you heard about one of those already with Kathleen's discussion of Community Blend, which we have featured in this resource online. We've also seen a number of campuses do other creative work. We have St. Thomas University in Florida, for example, that works to really integrate students into the work that community organizations are doing, especially around community organizing, working with farm workers, working with education and other important issues in the community, and doing so for class credit. We've also seen a number of campuses have panels, have speakers, have lectures on campus that are really trying to bring in the wisdom from the community and the people who are really living these issues, so that the students can have an experience of that right on campus. There's been a number of other ways as well, and you can see some of those online. But if you are thinking about that, you can write down this email address right here, intern3@accunet.org, and the intern at ACCU can help connect you with organizations in your community. You can also visit the povertyusa.org website, which is a website of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, a program of the Catholic bishops, and you can actually look on a map on that website, and you can see what are some of the organizations right in my community around my campus that are doing some of this work, and then you can connect with those directly. I want to mention as well the wearesaltandlight.org website. This is a website that is helping equip faith communities to put their faith in action and to be salt and light. It's a website of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. I'm going to briefly just go to the Learn Together section, where you can see that there are numerous resources on Catholic social teaching. There's a video series that we've done with CRS. foundational documents, learning activities, reflections, Ratito C resources, numerous resources that may be helpful to you. There's also a resource filter where you can select your audience, in this case college, and then you can see dozens of resources that might be useful to you. Finally, on the wearesaltandlight.org website, you may be interested in the success stories. We often talk about the challenge of applying Catholic social teaching, of taking it from theory to practice. And you can see over 80 stories on this website, including some from campuses, but also from parishes, dioceses, and other types of faith communities where people are putting Catholic social teaching in action. And it can be very inspiring to see how that can be lived out in an applied way. I also want to mention, as I think Tom mentioned previously, the Global Solidarity Grant Program that is sponsored by ACCU and Catholic Relief Services. You can visit the ACCU Peace and Justice blog at accupj.wordpress.com to get more information about how you can apply for one of those grants to do work on your campus. And then you have also heard mentioned the Catholic Relief Services University Program, a fantastic program that can help engage students, faculty, and staff in really tangible ways to live out global solidarity and connect with our brothers and sisters around the world. So check that out as well. And finally, I want to encourage all of you to consider joining us for the next Young Leaders Initiative at Catholic Social Ministry Gathering 2018, which is going to be held on February 3rd to 6th, 2018. You can see some of the many campuses that have participated in this initiative over the past several years that we've been offering it. But it's an effort to help bring those leaders, those student leaders from campus who may really be interested in a career in Catholic social ministry or in working with the church in a leadership position, where they can learn about important issues, they can network and connect with colleagues in the field, and they can practice gaining advocacy skills and taking that to Capitol Hill. So we do have the information and interest forms available already at the Catholic Social Ministry Gathering website. You can also go to the Catholic Social Ministry Gathering website to learn about some district visits that will be happening in early 2017. There will be a webinar on February 7th to prepare anyone who wants to do some local advocacy in February to learn about advocacy skills and some of the important issues. And then they will be doing district visits during the congressional recess on the week of February 20 to 24th. So you can join your campus community with others in your diocese who may be doing those district visits. Again, that's at CatholicSocialMinistryGathering.org. So just a few resources for you to think about, to follow up on. And I want to take a moment as we conclude to thank our panelists, to thank our participants, and to thank everyone for spending this time with us to reflect on the call that we all have to respond to Pope Francis's message to us that we need to prepare our students to be leaders who are capable of caring for today's world. So thanks for participating, everyone, and good luck.